There's a good chance that you're being sent this video because you believe Jonathan Majors is guilty based on the media and the reporting that you've seen. Danielle Atherton, or Danny Does Law on Twitter, she was there, not every day, but most of the days of the trial, correct?
Yes, every day except one. So out of what, 9? That's
Yeah.
day 10. I did 9. So
So we covered half of them already in prior videos. The first one is where she was sitting when they were talking to a digital analyst. He was looking at photos like this and trying to discredit and trying to say, well, the metadata that they take on these photos, they can't be admissible because apparently like those were taken in the Pacific time zone. Was that what he was going for?
he was literally trying to play confused. Like he recognized the pictures, but then he didn't recognize the geolocation on the picture. So, again, he works for the prosecution, so it's to be expected. But
He
he
was
really was,
unsuccessful.
yeah, he was just there to vouch for the fact of and explain what metadata and geo tracking is.
That day also she had a video compilation that was shown, and a lot of the parts where our friend was dancing, they pulled that because they didn't want to make her look bad. That was that first day. He
Yes,
did not return. They said he'd return for the second day of trial, but she didn't. And on that second day of trial, it was when Jonathan Majors' ex took the stand.
yes,
She admitted, according to Danielle, and you'll correct me when I make a mistake, that she took the phone first, that she was hitting his arm and shoulders. She said I didn't says that I did not fight back is what she says, but we can clearly see her in video fighting back. That's come out since. Jonathan would give her the Escalade for her to go home,
mm-hmm.
and of course a lot of the video that we've all seen that has been made public has been released, and everything Danielle reported basically happened just the way that she said it happened. She says that, and this is important for the the harassment. She said during that day that Jonathan was on the phone speaking loudly to his manager. And that is probably what they're going to try to say was harassment, right?
They're trying to say the harassment was when he was pushing her and back into the car.
S-
Now,
Okay.
I didn't know that pushing somebody into a car, yanking your arm away from them so they can stop pulling on you is harassment. But, you know, it is what it is.
That day she says that she danced one time with a broken rib,
Yes,
which was
right.
trying to make you guys see, okay, that's why we see her for like continuously like 3 hours of just being fine with a fine finger and not wincing at any pain of an ear injury,
Or
which
bleeding.
exists, or bleeding and not blonde hair
Right.
or touching on anybody. There was no, according to the driver, we heard that he didn't even clean up a blood from that car, so
Nothing.
we're good.
Nothing.
She said that at the point in the night where she left the club, she felt that she could be without him, like she's left the
Mm-hmm.
relationship,
And she had a new sense of independence.
even though she's using his credit card. And then she
Right.
left to his
And,
home where she's independent though.
yeah, right.
There's text messages that she says were read, and it was, "I love you. I did not cheat, but this isn't working." That's what Jonathan said.
Right.
And that came out. What she's claiming is that in the backseat of the car, Jonathan twists her arm, and that's
Yeah.
the physical thing. However, the finger injury that she had, which was super purple, was from a twist, wasn't it? Well, if he twisted your finger to make it purple, why didn't he twist your arm with a purple arm? I don't see a purple arm.
And the defense expert witness testified that a twisting injury would not cause what she called an oblique fracture in the top knuckle area of the finger. So it's not even the right injury for what she claims happened.
The first question that was asked to her was more so about, did the DA make a deal with you that if you were to hear come and testify, that there would be no prosecution on the charges that the police have on you for criminal mischief, which was like what she admitted to doing by stealing the guy's phone. And that was what shot down from the defense, from
Yep,
the
it was
prosecution.
it was as soon as it was asked, it was objected to and sustained. Like you hear the stuff, but a lot of it is objected to and sustained.
All that is available on a video right there. It's the day 5 live stream that we had. Now, the next time I spoke with Danielle, she was back in her beautiful office. It was
My office at home with the good lighting.
the next time we spoke, that video now is the one that's popping up right there on the side. But you can watch that where we discussed more of the testimony of Jonathan's ex. The cross examination came out. We learned about how she had an ex who suffered from suicide. And We also got into some of those text messages that make Jonathan look bad about the head injury. Hey, wait a minute. Did she ever say, did you hear out of her mouth that Jonathan Majors was violent towards her before March 25? Didn't she like
Nope.
shoot that down?
She never, it was asked. I cannot remember exactly how it was asked, but it was asked at least 2 different times, 2 different ways, and she could testify that he had never physically assaulted her before. She mentioned a lot of, verbal abuse, which she tried to use that audio to prove, which clearly it was not. And a lot of like withholding affection type stuff and manipulation, but nothing ever physical against her. Throwing things, breaking things, but nothing physically against her.
So this head injury text message would mean that
She either
whatever.
perjured herself or it's completely out of context because again, the first part of the sentence leading up to her saying she wanted to go to the hospital is redacted. So I don't know if it explained why she wanted to go or what the head injury was, but we couldn't see it. And that's why I made the joke that she probably bust her head on the headboard and, that's
Something
embarrassing.
embarrassing,
So, yeah.
illegal, kinky. There's a lot of
Right.
different ways or reasons for why. And Jonathan advising her not to go to the hospital is it's like self-defense. He knows he's black and he'll be a
Right.
suspect.
And he said in the text, I don't think that you are trying to protect us.
Yeah.
So to me, that meant that he seems it's to him, he gets the impression that she's always trying to say or do something to set something off. Because that stood out to me. I don't feel like you're trying to protect us. Why would he say something like that? Like he doesn't feel safe with her or feel safe with how she relays things to where, he feels like he might get in trouble. I don't know. I already said before,
No.
she seems like she's very draining and extra. So, it could be that, everything that she says and does is extra dramatic. And so it'll come across as, being more than what it is. And on the stand, she proved that anyway with her behavior.
These text messages were not from March. These text messages were for September. So if you didn't know
September,
that, now you know that.
September 2022.
And if you didn't know also, the police who saw him and saw her already made up their mind. And so what Jonathan is paranoid about when you go to the authorities or when you get things reported, what he was paranoid about came out to be completely true. You can experience the last 8 months that he just experienced and you'll know exactly what he meant. So
Yeah.
let's fast forward now to the days that we didn't cover, which would be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Give me your Monday report, Danielle. I'll stop talking.
Oh, Lord. Okay, let me get started. All right, let's play. So Monday, we spoke to our friend, the driver, right? Let me just make sure.
Naveed Sarwar.
Yes, Naveed. So he came on Friday, just for them to tell him he would come back Monday morning with his interpreter. He comes back. He's the first witness. Again, he's sitting in his big bubble coat. He does not look like he wants to be there. He's not making a lot of eye contact. The interpreter is sitting directly next to him, so they're side by side. Interpreter's wearing earphones. So it makes me wonder, did he understand English? Because I know in the United Nations, they have earphones to translate. So I'm thinking that maybe he was getting some translation to him. You know what I mean? Like it was a three-way translation thing going on because he did have on some type of earphones. And I do know from going to the United Nations, they have those so that you can understand, every language around the world could be able to understand the English. He basically, and Chillmonger and I were hoping that the Urdu interpreter would just ask him the questions in Urdu and he would answer in English. But I came to find out before the jury was even let in on Monday morning, they were discussing between the defense and the prosecution. It was an issue that there was a Brady disclosure that they only got that morning at 9:07, saying that they met with the Urdu translator on Sunday with the driver. So that, came up as an issue. It also came up that the driver was deeply offended that they thought he needed a translator. So in context, when you see him on the stand on Monday, it makes sense because he just did not seem like he wanted to be there. And I personally feel like he was like, oh, okay, so you guys don't think I know English? I'm not answering in English either. And so the entire testimony was in Urdu, with the exception of a couple of words that don't translate into Urdu. So they said it in English, like escalade, and certain words that aren't Urdu words.
Any
And
psycho girl?
he didn't. That's the thing. He didn't say the psycho
Wow.
girl part,
All
but
right.
he said enough. You guys saw all the highlights of his testimony. He said enough that he didn't even need to say psycho girl. But and I'm sure they
The origin of Psycho Girl is that in a written statement from Priya Chaudhary that went to Insider, that's what
probably.
he classified her as. So maybe if he was speaking English and the defense attorney had longer with Naveed, they probably would have gotten into that. But I don't think
Got
they
him
needed
to
it.
say it. Or maybe Sunday they told him he couldn't say it because remember, he's a prosecution witness
Yeah, yeah.
that went left, as were all of them on Monday. Those
Hmm.
were all prosecution witnesses that did not, they basically testified for the defense. So long story short, you guys have seen the highlight reel of the stuff that he was saying. Hilarious, I must say. Mainly because of his disposition. And then I think we kind of found it funny because he kept calling them the boy and the girl. And I can only assume, I don't know any of those language families. I can only assume that that's the only literal translation for man and woman in those types of languages. So I don't think he was trying to be disrespectful, but I think it's just a language thing that's how it translated.
Yeah, he's 50.
But
Everyone's a boy and a girl when you're 50.
oh, yeah, right. Yeah, he looks like he's in his mid-50s. He said he's been driving for Black Lane Car Service for 2 years. Most of his clients are Emirates airline business class customers. He identified the client as Jonathan Majors based on Priya Satyani setting up the car. The car was a Cadillac Escalade. He picked him up, he said, probably 5 p.m. in Chelsea. When he asked who was with Jonathan, he said a girl with him. When asked about their interaction with one another, he says it was good. He testified that he took them to the Brooklyn Academy of Music, and he stayed in the car the entire time they were at the performance. When he asked about their interaction at that point, he says it was good. He testified that neither of them seemed intoxicated. He then took them to the Japanese restaurant. They stayed for about 90 minutes. They asked him again, how was their interaction? He says it was good. Then he says, then I went to leave them at the house, meaning take them home. When asked if he saw, he goes at 12:40 a.m. I was taking them to their house. When we reached Canal and Bari Street, the girl said, I want to see something on your phone.
Mm-hmm.
He also states he was looking straight. But see, I think the one thing the defense missed, but I guess, like I said, by the time he finished, they didn't really have to ask him anything. But I feel like, I like to err on the side of caution and just ask extra questions. But they did keep emphasizing that he was looking straight. Now, we all know, like I said before, I have an Escalade, but the rear view mirror doesn't sit any higher than any other vehicle. So you can look straight and still be peeking in a rear view mirror. And I feel like somebody should have asked that because obviously he wasn't turned all the way around, because if he was, the whole altercation probably wouldn't have happened, or it would have been less extreme because now somebody's watching, right? But I feel like he could have been looking straight and peeking up at the rear view mirror. And nobody asked that. Well, okay, you say you were looking straight, but did you happen to look through the rearview mirror to see? Now, I don't know if there's not an Urdu word for that, or, you know what I mean? Or they just dropped the ball on asking that question. But, I mean, it really doesn't matter because at the end of the day, he was there. We were not. And, you can't say that he did not see or hear what he saw or heard.
Oh, yeah, from the sounds
And
produced.
right, from the sounds produced. And there was there was a camera in the car, but it was not working. Because an affidavit was submitted the next morning. There was no witness that came in, but someone from the car company sent in a statement saying that the SD card was there, nothing was altered, nothing was erased, it just never recorded, basically.
Bro, I don't believe that for a second. I think Black Lane has high profile clientele that need to know that when they ride in that service, they will not have their ongoings appear in court.
Exactly, because the stuff people do in cars, especially a car as big as an Escalade, yeah, I'm positive you don't want people seeing what you're doing or having done to you. So, right. And there's no way to ever know that either. Sarah says, I was looking straight. The boy said there was nothing, but the girl was insisting. When asked if he saw what happened next, he says, I was feeling that something was going on in the back seat. The boy wanted to get rid of the girl, so he opened the door. The boy came out of the car at Canal and Center Street. That's the video.
So he says that Jonathan gets out first on the right side, which the right side door was his side, correct?
The right side, yeah, the right passenger side, because she was sitting behind the driver.
Okay.
Then these are the highlights, the different things that he said. He says he saw that they were fighting among themselves. He was trying to get rid of her. He was saying, leave me alone. I want to go. He was not doing anything. She was doing everything. I do remember the boy pushing her back into the car to get rid of her. And Grace testified to that. She said he was trying to keep me from following him. He was trying to get me away from him. She said that. So this is just the driver's version of that. He was trying to get rid of her. In Urdu, that means get me away from him, keep me from following him, right? Then he says, then they both left. And then he said he called his booker. The booker told him to hold on, I'll call you back. And then she eventually said, just chill, wait for them, try to find them. So he says he took a right turn on Center Street. Mind you, I've said this before. This entire situation happened within 2 to 3 blocks of the courthouse that we're currently having a trial in. This is right. I've walked past all of these landmarks on my way to the courthouse. So just to say that you can see, how it could have played out and what the distance was from one place to the other. I walked right past that parking lot that they were running past. I walked past the Lafayette building that she ended up at. It was a bit of a run.
If I'm ever in New York, if I'm in Manhattan, I'm gonna
be like
run.
A tour stop, right?
Not tour. I'm doing the run. I'm doing the Jonathan Majors run. I'm going live.
Right? Start at Canal and Center, and then just work your way all the way to Lafayette. It's about five blocks. Okay, as you can see, a couple of them were really long blocks, so it probably was like the equivalent of 2 blocks in one. So if you had to break them up, it was about 5 blocks. Sarwar testified, I had a feeling the girl had hit the boy earlier because of the way she was fighting and the sounds produced. You don't have to be looking at somebody to know what a fight sounds like, right? So, I mean, that, them asking if he was looking straight ahead really doesn't matter.
All that matters is that he doesn't say Jonathan Majors struck her. And if, as the only witness, that's what you need if you're trying to prove beyond reasonable doubt that Jonathan assaulted her.
Right, exactly. Of course, the prosecution and the judge kind of warned him that he shouldn't offer his personal opinion, but no moves to strike were made. Nobody said, okay, strike that from the record, or you know what I mean? So what is he supposed to offer? They did not strike any of his testimony. So, there was no point in telling him.
Well, they tried when they said he was trying to get rid of her. Over there, we see Perez saying, no, don't give your opinion, objection. And then he repeated, he was trying to get rid of her.
Right, and they would not, and they didn't strike it from the record. So the jury was allowed to keep that into consideration.
So tell me about the laughter after that, after he repeated it. Like, who laughed? What did the jury...
I couldn't tell who, because I was so scared to react, because, the judge, he threatened us as early as yesterday. Because during... Priya's summations, I have to remember what she said, but everybody on my side started laughing. Like, laughing. And I was like, oh, don't do that. But it was just scattered. It wasn't like a whole, crowd laughing. It was a couple of like snickers here and there. But like I said, I think it was because of his personality and the way it came out, not necessarily what he said. Because he was just really insistent. Yeah. And then, like I said, it made it funny that he kept saying the boy, the girl, so just all of it together was just the perfect storm of being funny. He said they showed some of the other video, the one where the car is sitting on the corner with the flashes on and you see Chloe, Max, and at some point, Jonathan takes a selfie with a fan. You can't see any of them because even Chloe couldn't really identify herself, but she knew that she was standing there because it was really far away. So the camera must have been way on the other side of the street.
I didn't see
So
that video. They're supposedly unsealed evidence, but I never saw that one appear anywhere.
I don't think they, because that one was, it's unremarkable. It's really nothing. It's just you see the car sitting on the side of the right on the corner with the flashes on.
Mhm.
The only thing of consequence of that video is that you see Jonathan get back out of the car again
Okay.
to exit, exit the situation. But that's it. There's nothing like, inflammatory or anything on that particular video. But that's the one they showed because they were trying to get him to identify Jonathan. He could not identify either of them. He didn't recognize the girl. He didn't recognize Jonathan, in the sense of, okay, I'm just the driver. I'm not looking deeply into your face. I just know I'm picking up two people, taking them to, and he said that he only recognized Jonathan from the Friday, that he came in to be told that he had needed a translator. So that's it with the driver. Like I said, he was excellent. He set the day off really good because starting from that point, everything just went left for the prosecution in terms of their witnesses. The next witness was Chloe Zoller. That's the girl that is
Fair game,
prominent.
girly.
Yeah, fair game, girly. And I wish they would have asked her what she meant by that, because I'm like, I tell you my boyfriend cheated on me and you say fair game? Like, what? What if your boyfriend cheated on you? Like, I don't know. But she, basically testified as to what she was doing all the way up until the point where she met Grace. They were drinking. She said that she was intoxicated. She did not try to, downplay her level of intoxication.
What an amazing witness that they've brought forward.
Yes. So she, she says that she was ordering a cab, an Uber or whatever, and when she came out of the building, she saw that Max and Shams was talking to someone she didn't recognize. So that's where you see the video pick up with them talking, and she, and Grace telling her whatever she's telling her. They spoke for, obviously, she said a few minutes, but we all know that it's about 4 minutes before Jonathan walks up. She said that, let me just make sure. Okay, so she said when she was asked when she first saw Jonathan, she said he proceeded to pass right past us and around the corner. So that's where you see him walk by. He kind of goes like this when Grace walks up to him. Right. So this is that part. She says she proceeded to follow them around the corner. Now, if you notice, the video that was released that TMZ has been airing, you get to see them go around the corner. The court was not, we were not shown that. But the TMZ version of the video, you see him walk past her, follow him, and you see them actually around that corner. If you don't remember, I'll send you the link. But I was like, wait a minute, we didn't get to see that one when he actually goes around the corner. Is that the TMZ one? That's around the corner, you see?
Yeah.
That's around the corner, and she's still trotting behind him like a lost puppy.
And I noticed something towards the left of the screen. You can see Chloe just before it ends. I'll actually slow it down to like 0.25 speed, and you'll see what I mean. Chloe's
and
gonna
that's
pop
what
up.
she testifies to, that she stayed kind of behind. So that's why she says she couldn't hear what Grace was saying to him.
Okay.
But
Well,
but I don't know how, because according to the inadmissible evidence, she was yelling. So, but Chloe said that she followed behind. Let me see. She proceeded to follow them around the corner, but did not recall what Jabari was saying. She says they were on the corner a long time, about 30 minutes.
Okay.
She testified, as we know, that the driver met them because he finally caught up to them, met them outside, and she thought they were going to send them both in that Escalade back home because the driver showed up. So that's the video where you see the car on the corner with the flashes on, and they're kind of all just standing around the car. And that's the point where the fan comes and he gives them the selfie, that type of thing. She says she then heard them running out of the car, and they were both very upset because that's at the point where Grace testified that they got back in the car. She convinced them to get back in the car. They were only in the car 5 seconds, but she testified it was like 2 minutes. So during closing summations, Priya played the video again, showing them, where they got in the car and jumped right back out. And it was 5 seconds. He came in on one side, came out on another side. And it was literally only 5 seconds of time before he ran back out the car again. She says that her and the friend group, they were trying to figure out where to send Grace, where to send Jonathan, because they realized that they could not, be together at the same time.
And salute to them. I don't think we do this enough. Everyone's laughing about the white hat guy and his, when he went forward to Jonathan. Man, he's just having fun. They're just playing. What mattered is there was someone they saw in need, and they said, "After this birthday party, let's figure things out," because they don't know anything.
And I mean, the bonus was that they all knew, except for Shem. They all knew who Jonathan was. So, I'm sure any of us would want to stick around and be nosy to see a celebrity and his crazy girlfriend arguing, right? I mean, who wouldn't? I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere. That's like a tourist experience as far as I'm concerned. She testified that she entered the car, the Escalade with Grace, and tried to get her to go home in the Escalade. But then, ended up I guess in the course of the communication with her, well, do you want to come with us to the party then? And that's kind of like where that ended up.
I hear they're really good friends because when our girl Stephanie, when she was on the stand, she was talking about, hey, what about that photo you took with Chloe? I don't remember. I just don't recall. So they must have so many photos on the phones, right? What did
there's a lot of photos, and actually during the defense cross, they kept pointing out, this is you taking a selfie, this is you taking another selfie, this is y'all taking more selfies, and then they showed a few pictures that weren't selfies, but it was of the three of them together, her, Grace, and Shams. I'm so mad I can't remember that man's name, but
he didn't know who Jonathan was. We don't know who he is.
Right. So they took an Uber. She said Grace seemed calmer. They got to the venue, but they were late, so all the free party drinks were gone. So she said they were kind of like jerry-rigging some drinks together with what was left over on the table. And then Grace was like, well, just order some champagne and some tequila shots. She said that Grace told her that it was Jonathan's card. I don't know why she told her that. So I don't know if it was kind of like, girl, order some drinks because this is on Jonathan. I don't know if that was that kind of conversation.
That was that conversation. Then you know what she said afterwards? Fair game, girly.
Right, exactly. Okay, let's order some more drinks. So she said she had a lighter and happier demeanor. She says she didn't notice any injuries on Grace, but that Lucy's is dark inside. She also said that she noticed no injuries on Grace when they first met earlier that night. And we see that. We see in the video that she's going like this to her ear, to her hair. She's pulling her hair up in a ponytail. There's no injury there. That's pretty clear video. There's no cut. There's no blood. Nothing. And and Chloe's standing right there at her ear, staring into her ear hole. And, you see no blood. There's no way someone wouldn't notice that. That's
called probable cause, everybody.
Right. There's no way you wouldn't notice that because I'd be like, oh, what's that? You okay? Like, Zola testified that she and Grace are not friends and they do not keep in contact. She says that she last saw her that night on the 25th and that she got one text from her after that, probably to say that she got home, but that was it. But if you let Grace tell it, the way she's saying Chloe is, Chloe that, Chloe, you would think they were still friends.
Yeah.
But she says, yeah, I haven't heard from her since that day.
Damn.
On cross-examination, Zola was shown pictures that they took at Lucy's. Like I said, it was about 10 different selfies. There was a picture of Grace leaned up against Shem's and then with her tongue hanging out and her eyes kind of like closed. And you see her hand over his shoulder, and that right hand had no injury on it. Nothing. And this is a crystal clear picture with good lighting. No injury on any of the fingers of that right hand.
That's called probable cause.
Right. She confirmed again that she did not observe any injuries on Grace when they first met. Oh, I said that. Oh, and that when she hugged Grace, she did not complain of any pain or transfer any blood onto her. Zola testified that she observed tears on Jonathan's face when she first saw him. Objection sustained. But she said it. She said she saw tears on his face. That's in quotes, direct quotes, when she first saw him. So I'm guessing that's when he walked past. She saw tears on his face. She does not recall hearing Grace yelling, and she says she watched from a distance. So that's to your point where you see her kind of coming around a corner before the video stops. Zola does not recall Jonathan yelling, but she says she may have used the term when she heard Grace yelling at Jonathan. So then the video is played of the surveillance at 3 Lafayette Street, the Lafayette Street apartment building, with sound. So now you hear them talking, and she's saying "fair game, girlie," yada yada yada. Yeah. Zola testifies that Jonathan and Grace were in the car about 30 seconds before they both came running out. We come to find out it was really 5 seconds. Yeah. Grace said it was 2 minutes. So I'm guessing Zola's closer to the 5 seconds than Grace was. But then Grace also said it felt like 2 minutes. So she has a habit of feeling things that don't actually happen.
Yeah, she said it felt like forever in the other video we did together.
Yeah, it felt like forever. Then it felt like 2 minutes, and it turns out it was only 35 seconds. But to Jonathan's defense, had he been in the business of giving quickies, it felt like an hour, but it was only 3 minutes.
Girl math.
It felt like 2 hours, but it was only like 15 minutes.
I know what he means.
Yeah, so that works to his advantage, I guess. Let's see. All right, so she's, like I said, she says that she was told that the credit card belonged to Jonathan, but she couldn't recall exactly how Grace said it. When asked to recollect vaping and smoking illegally in the club with Grace, Chloe says potentially, and I believe so, but there's clearly video surveillance of Grace smoking in the club, which is illegal in New York, by the way. So I don't know why nobody stopped her. She testifies that she did not see everything that Grace did that night, and that she did not recall if Grace indicated any pain while she was holding Chloe's hand, because there's a lot of surveillance of her holding Chloe's hand, holding on to railings, holding on to the DJ booth, signing things, all with the right hand, signing the check, writing with a pen, because her hand wasn't injured. There's a picture that clearly shows that her hand was not injured at Lucy's.
It was not purple like this?
No, all the fingers looked the same when she was at Lucy's. So even though none of the expert witnesses testified as to exactly how they thought it was happening, I personally think just because it's that one finger and no other finger around it is injured or damaged, she might have slammed it in a door. She might have slammed it in a drawer at home or on her way home. I don't know. But that's the only way that you can hurt one finger and not damage the rest of your hand. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And there's no photo.
Get it caught in something. You know what I mean? I don't know. But that's just one middle finger. Like, how does that one finger get hurt and nothing else around it gets hurt as collateral damage? It makes no sense. So,
it makes no sense to me either, but we're not racist. Remember, I told you in the last video, we're not people who go, oh, you know what? You can see the intent in his face because, or whatever else stupid dog whistle terms that they're using to try to get Jonathan.
Because we're always angry. I'm always the angry black woman. I didn't mean to get you angry. I'm not angry. You're angry. You know what I mean? You'll know when I'm angry. Surveillance shows that, okay, so like I said, there are a few photos shown to emphasize the fact that Grace was up against them with her, her ear, everything on her right side was up against Shams or Chloe, just to highlight the fact that she was not hurt and that they did not get any blood transferred on them, and that the finger wasn't hurt. They didn't bring up the finger until the expert witness testified, because I didn't even realize the finger wasn't hurt until the expert witness testified and pointed out, yeah, that finger's not the same finger that was in this picture. Right. So the video is playing of Zola didn't remember Grace stumbling into the wall, so they played a video. Show her stumbling.
Oh, Chloe Zoller was in the video, observed it
Mhm.
in the video, but because she was so intoxicated, she couldn't recall it.
Right, and she's in that surveillance with her because she's walking her out the door,
Great
and
witness,
you see her
everybody.
kind of
Sorry.
right. The video is played with them approaching the exit, and she stumbles at the exit. It shows outside of the building. It shows them hugging, cheek to cheek on the right side. Um, Breaking apart, talking, hugging again. It's three different times they hugged each other. You know that drunk hugging
Yeah,
type thing
yeah.
people
We're
do.
we're good. We're good on this witness. Let's get to the
Yeah,
next guy. Was it
and that's
Billy?
it. Yeah, Billy, they didn't keep him on the stand at all. He basically corroborated most of what Chloe said. He said once he got to the club, he didn't see either one of them much at all. So he can't vouch for anything that happened at the club. He just kind of relayed what happened outside. He said he was on a scale of 1 to 10, 7 drunk, and they let him go. He almost looked surprised that they let him go. But I'm like, 50-year-old frat boy, yeah, we don't really care what you have to say. Keep it moving. Because he's clearly one of those cocky, privileged kids. I'm surprised he didn't come on the stand with a blazer and a baseball cap on, honestly.
Oh, he
Because
wasn't wearing a cap?
no, but he may as well have been, because what he had on was that typical frat boy, country club type of, all he needed was the ascot, and he would have been, he would have
All
been
he
perfect.
needed for me was to get off the stand and then run towards Jonathan and get someone to hold him back. That's what
Yeah,
we
get
needed. We
somebody
needed
to hold him back. Right. So,
a
he definitely was off-putting, I think, to both sides, because they kind of was just like they ran through him really quickly and then let him go.
Who's next?
Um, then they played, I want to say this was, I don't remember what time it was, but I know I walked in as it was playing. But I don't think it would have made a difference in what I did and didn't hear, because, like I said, the audio is perfectly clear on the released version online, but unfortunately, they spend $200 an hour on witnesses. They spend hotel per diem and flight money for international witnesses, but
Yes.
they don't have speakers that they can play audio through. You literally listen through this 10-year-old TV speakers. And during closing summations, they even had to hold the microphone up to the what do you call it? The CPU of the computer, because of course they're using PCs with grainy sound. So the
Oh.
sound was horrible, needless to say. So I couldn't make out hardly any of it. I could hear where he was describing her. I could hear where he was saying how, he found her, how he was knocking on his door and had to have the handyman let him in. But obviously you guys heard the rest, and it really wasn't much different. He didn't say anything specific. He did seem like he was trying to say she had a history of something, but then he got cut off. I'm still curious to know what that was, and I don't know why no one asked that.
Yeah.
Um, but I guess they would have had to ask it of him, and we're not putting him on the stand, so we're good.
Anything with the word history, it will open the door to some new evidence. So let's leave that alone.
So I guess that's why we just left that
Hey,
open.
how did you know about the $200 witnesses, and like how do you know the answer to these things?
Oh, they asked. They asked
Who's they?
the defense
The
asked
defense always asks how much money from taxpayer dollars is the flight to get this Englander, or the hotels, or
three
rather,
Englanders. They flew three of them in.
uh,
Hotel and per diem for three of them. But they're sitting there doing their closing summations, trying to poke at the fact that the defense paid their expert witness $3,700, but you spent at least 3 times as much between round trip London flights at the last minute. I'm sure they're staying at nice hotels, and in that area, they're minimum $500 a night, because I looked. And then food, they had a per diem food expense that they were reimbursing them for.
so the defense
So
is using taxpayer, or rather their own money, but the prosecutors, the district attorney, is using the good fine people of Manhattan's money.
yeah, but you worrying about what Jonathan paid his witness out of his own pocket, but you're using, right? Because can we itemize that list? Because that's at least 10 grand that you then ran up so far, minimum,
Now you're
on
familiar
3
with the Adam
witnesses.
Foss case, right?
Mhm.
Adam Foss. Are you
I know.
familiar with
Yes.
Priya Chaudhry's private? So everyone right now, open a new tab, type the word Adam Foss, and look into
Mhm.
that trial. The DA is a long-term goal for Priya Chaudhry, and getting these people to say this under under what's it called, under oath. That's important
Mhm.
to Priya Chaudhry. I'm sorry to interrupt your story though. Let's
Oh
keep on
no,
going with
you're
your
fine. I've
reporting.
heard about him, and I'm glad that he got vindicated, and I hope he turns around and sues them. But
Yeah,
yeah,
he
that was
is.
just a non. Go ahead.
Yeah, he's
Good.
suing.
I hope he does, and I hope because you have prosecutorial immunity, but it only goes but so far. Um, so that was just a 911 call. There was no testimony from anybody on it. They just played it and then moved on to the next witness, which was the two police officers. I call Officer Lucero Officer Amnesia, and then we had Brian Hansen, who's a sergeant. I call him the choker because that was the one that went like that to get Lucero, not Lucero, get what's his name? Oh wait, did I skip past? Did I
Swaney,
skip past Swaney?
Brendan
Yes,
Swaney.
Swaney. Yes. Oh Lord, I didn't even put him on here.
It's cool.
All right, yeah. Again, it was a lot of like I call it the BOGO Blue Wall special. You buy one get one because they all pretty much said the same thing. There was nothing that any of them said other than a sergeant that kind of made you go, oh, okay. Because for each one, it was almost like that movie Vantage Point. You literally saw each one of their body cams from different vantage points, pretty much all the same type of surveillance because they were all pretty much in the same rooms at the same time. The only thing of note that the choker said was that Jabari told him she was struck. This is quoted, direct quote. She was struck in the head several times, and that the defendant grabbed her throat.
Okay, well, there's audio on these body camera footage, so we heard that, right?
No, they didn't play it. They didn't play the sound for us. We couldn't hear it
How
because
about
the
that?
judge kept saying that those videos were only so we can see her injuries, that we can see I got to find the exact wording, but he didn't want us hearing anything because he just wanted us to be able to see what was going on and not prejudice the jury by hearing them say things like, oh, this is not your apartment, or if I punch you, I wouldn't break my finger, or did he choke you, or did he hurt you? Because Sweeney did say that he asked her if Jonathan did that to her. And even though we didn't hear it, they gave him a laptop with earphones, and he was like, queued up to that part, and he was like, yeah, I did say that.
Okay, great.
And then she answered, I guess so. So basically they would just basically do the power of suggestion, giving her giving her things that she said that Jonathan did that we don't know that he necessarily did.
So did the defense ask, and then did the defense provide the earphones?
Yes. The defense, I call him the tech guy, but I'm quietly confident he's another attorney at the firm. Very clean looking dude.
So the reason I'm
But
asking this is just because it's a goal to go against this cop in the future. Because once there's a not guilty verdict, they're going to say, hey, listen, he's on, video or on audio, and we can hear him suggesting this to the victim, the ex. That shows you that he's malpracticing. He is a fabricator of the law. And Officer
right.
Brendan Swain is on camera. He's not here to protect and serve. He's here to arrest and racist.
Right. And that's the thing. Oh, Officer Amnesia, I called him that because literally every other question, I do not recall. I do not recall. I do not recall. I do not recall. So they got nothing out of him. And probably because he no longer works for the NYPD, he's in another county. So he doesn't have to be accountable for anything that happened that day because he doesn't even work there anymore. But like I said, Officer Sweeney, that was last week though. He looked like he just knew they were going to make him a meter maid. So he just looked completely defeated at the end of his testimony because they caught him in a lot of contradictory statements. The only other remarkable thing that Sergeant Hansen said is that he admitted that he indicated to Officer Swain and grabbed his own neck to get him to ask Jabari more questions.
Oh, that's what that means. That wasn't a strangulation. No way.
But I'm like, why would you do that? Is there no other code that you have for like ask more questions? Like
Don't
ask
even
more
give that
questions.
any of its no. Get out of here. He was charged with strangulation by the police. That's what that meant. Okay, don't try to hit
Right.
me with. Oh, this is the standard. This is the whole
Yeah,
ask
that's
questions.
code for ask more questions. Is it?
Man,
Oh, okay. I'm confused. Um, so yeah, I just consolidate them in the 2-for-1 deal on the Blue Wall special. That's what I posted. Because yeah, they were just filler witnesses. Because obviously you have to interview the police officer. I am surprised that they did not interview um Jonathan's manager, which is Priya Sadiani, because she was mentioned several times, especially by Grace, because Grace, maybe she refused to cooperate because Grace did say that they were talking about Jonathan behind his back. So his Priya was basically playing both ends, playing ends against the middle. So maybe she's embarrassed and she decides she doesn't want to cooperate, but I don't know why they wouldn't still subpoena her, because she could testify to what both of them were telling her and help both of them. You know what I mean? Because I don't know if she still is, but she was his manager. She was the one booking all the cars. She was the one
I
booking
know,
the
but
flight. She's
but
his right hand.
she wasn't present though. But she was on the phone, just like his other friend was on the phone with him when he was banging, right? Which we'll get to that in
Right.
a
She
second.
was on the
Still,
phone when he jumped out the car. And then that's what Grace testified to, that he was talking to her. He was talking really loud. And that's the reason why she told him to get back in the Escalade, because he was talking too loud. She was on the phone with them during all those prior to March altercations. And that's when Grace admitted that she started confiding in her too, because she didn't like the way Jonathan spoke to her either. I don't know. But
I
I
mean,
feel like
it's like
she should have been a witness. I mean, because she could have vouched for both of their behavior. It could have benefited both of them, honestly, because she was a first-hand witness to any complaints or any, ongoings that they were telling her was going on.
well,
The
long
next,
term though, it is to the benefit of Jonathan, since it is up to the DA to prove that he's guilty, and it's not up to the defense to prove that he's not guilty. He starts off automatically as an innocent man until proven
right,
guilty, as we know.
right, and it then just starts chipping away as valid evidence is presented, which there hasn't been any yet. But Ben Toddy is witness number 11. He's a very dramatic, sassy man. And he went up there with all the theatrics, pulling out all the stops. He's the guy that she called when she got to Bellevue, and he met her at Bellevue. So he
What is
stayed with
Bellevue?
the hospital that she went to.
Okay.
So just so you know, and I think I said this before, historically, Bellevue is known for their psychiatric care. So there's a running joke in New York, at least when I was a kid. Oh, they need to be in Bellevue. They need to say, oh, he acts like he just came out of Bellevue. Now, obviously, they have more services, and it's a full-blown hospital. But they're well known for their psychiatric facility. So he said he spent 3 hours with her in the psych ward while they did all their evaluations and whatever. He is just like Holly, just like Grace. That's why I said I did not know if it was cultural. Somebody said in your comments, no, it's not cultural. So I don't know if they're just full of it, or if they just feel like they always have to qualify yes or no answers. But he was the same way. Instead of just saying yes or no, it was always something extra that got objected to, and he had to kind of backtrack. He's been living in New York for 8 years. Not sure how he ended up in London and had to be flown back by the prosecution, but I guess he wanted a free flight too, so he went home and said, "Hey, I'm not in New York. Can you fly me back?" But he's been living full time in New York for 8 years. He's been Jabari's manager for just that long, and he says they've only been close friends for half that long, so maybe the last 4 years. I noted that he was very dramatic in describing how he perceived her to feel. And despite it being largely speculation and exaggeration, he was allowed to continue through several defense objections. Anybody else, speculation, you don't know that that's how she felt, objection, it would normally be sustained, right? Not in this case. He was allowed to speculate that how she was feeling. He said he sat with Jabari for the 3-hour stay at Bellevue Psychiatric Ward and says that her demeanor was one that I have not recognized before. She was a much smaller personality. Grace was half the person I've seen before. What? Like, why? Okay.
She
He
was hot.
also testified that he went back to the apartment, back to Johnson's apartment. Well, he says back to her apartment, back to Jonathan's apartment after contacting Priya Sadiani and helped her pack because, he had to say, of course she couldn't pack, with her injured hand, but she could smoke, she could drink, she could dig in her purse, she can text. Because in the police surveillance video of them taking her out of the building, she's texting the whole time, texting the entire time with the right hand. She could do all that, but she couldn't pack her bag with some yoga gear because he kept saying it was dance clothing. So I'm sure it was just leggings and tops and but she couldn't pack that. It was too heavy, too hard to
Danny,
do.
the adrenaline worn off. God.
Oh yeah, the doctor. Yeah, I can't wait to get to her. I mean, I'm not gonna go deep into her testimony because it's a lot that a lot of people don't care about or don't understand. But I'll just basically bottom line it for you. He says, and it's helped the defense. He said he too tried to persuade Grace to go to a hotel and to speak to her sister, but she refused to go and wanted to sleep.
Her New York sister.
Because her sister lives in New York. So that's why I'm curious as to the status of their relationship at that time. Because during her testimony, when she also mentioned that she tried to call her sister and her sister didn't answer the phone, she got choked up when mentioning calling her sister. And I'm like, why are you getting choked up? If that's your sister, what's sad about it? So I don't know if maybe they weren't talking at the time and maybe it kind of hit her that's why her sister wasn't answering the phone. But he said in exact words, I tried to get her to speak to her sister. So to me, that sounds like she wasn't speaking to her at the time. Instead of just saying, I try to get her to call her sister. That's usually how you say that, right?
Objection, speculation, Danny.
Right. But he was able to do that. So, so he tried to make it sound like he knew for a fact that Grace left after he suggested she leave. But on cross, he had to admit that he did not know if Grace ever left the apartment as he suggested.
That really
He never
eats at
saw
your
her leave.
yeah,
Right.
your
Because
the credibility of the witness is being shot. Each and every one of these guys, the
right.
witnesses.
That's why I said Monday was a good day for the defense. Defense rested after asking him 3 questions, one other in which he admitted to having his flight paid for by the DA. So that was, when they found that out. Next witness was the cantankerous social worker, Josie Torrielli. She's highly credentialed, but she's not a doctor. She's not a PhD. She just has she's a licensed clinical social worker. She has a master's in social work from Columbia University. But they, the defense did ask, are you a doctor? Do you, are you a PhD? No. So they tried to get her disqualified as an expert, but of course, I think in the interest of saving time, the judge qualified her, but I think she probably could have been disqualified. She's being paid $200 an hour by the DA. She was lackluster. The jury was completely disengaged.
I'm disengaged just listening about
yeah,
this.
I low-key fell asleep twice. Like I literally put my head down and I had to catch myself getting up. It literally, if you've gone to university, it literally feels like you worked all day, had a night class, a night psychology class, and you're just sitting there like, oh my God, like, why didn't I just do this when I was younger and could just go to school all day and not after work? Like, that's literally how it felt. Like you were sitting in a lecture, a psychology 101 lecture. Most of her testimony was psychobabble, and that the majority of Americans get off of TikTok. Like it's literally all that TikTok psychology. This was funny, and I'm really surprised that nobody pushed it a little further because the prosecution said, "Is it possible that physical violence is not always hitting someone?" Isn't the key word physical?
Yeah, I don't get that one.
Violence. Is it true that physical violence is not always hitting someone? And she said yes. And I'm sitting there like, it is? Let's hear this. So when they were like, well, can you give an example? Choking. Oh. Isn't that hitting someone or touching someone?
Well, I guess hitting would mean that emotion.
But you're still putting your hands on somebody. Like that's still attacking somebody physically. So how is that not physical violence? I don't know. And I'm surprised the defense didn't say, you say that choking is not physical. Like I'm surprised they didn't go there with her, but it's funny because, well, let me get to it. Nothing she offered as an expert opinion applied to the case at hand because remember, she was severely limited in what she could say. She could not talk about battered women syndrome. She could not offer any diagnoses. She could not use any. All she could testify to is why Grace behaved the way she did, despite claiming she was afraid of Jonathan or that she was abused. And we never even got to that because the prosecution never asked, and the defense didn't even pursue
Danny,
her.
I'm really bored. With
Yeah,
this
it's boring.
What did the defense ask her, and then we can get to the next one?
Okay, the defense basically asked her to confirm that there's no way to look at someone and tell if they've experienced trauma because she's supposed to be a trauma expert. She said that, yeah, there's no way you can look at somebody and say that. She confirmed that she's never worked with someone who's faked trauma.
Perfect.
She denied being biased, but claims that she has a different worldview about domestic violence due to her profession. So she likes to play semantics too. That's called bias. She agreed that not every disagreement or argument is intimate partner violence. She was also asked, but it was objected to and sustained. Seth was like, have you worked with people who have been traumatized by being falsely accused?
Ooh.
And it was objected to and sustained, but her face got twisted up. She got very snarky with the defense. Like,
because she's got a different worldview based off her profession. That's all.
Mm-hmm. And she does not like being challenged. And she's clearly one of those, what I call toxic feminists, that no matter what, and no matter what evidence you present, she's going to always side with the alleged victim. And I think that's why Seth asked her that. Like, what about the people that get traumatized from being falsely accused? You don't have any information on that, right? No. So they were supposed to finish with her the next day because the judge was like, okay, that's it. We're going to recess. We're going to adjourn. The next morning, she was the first person on the stand. And Seth got up there and he was like, no further questions. And she was like, huh? Like, he was like, I'm not even going to waste my time because at this point, what could I possibly ask you? You were useless thus far. And there's really nothing else to ask. So he probably was just as bored as everybody else was. So he didn't even finish questioning her. And he told us that he had 10 more minutes.
Could that be to run up the tally on the money because she's $200 an hour, right?
Right.
Could that be it? So that when they go after the DA, this district attorney has spent this much money of taxpayers on cases that were like they lost
Right.
Or was that his get back? Maybe that was his get back to her. You know what?
Probably. He was like, you're not going to get another 200 a day. Gotta go. See ya. Because she literally wasn't on that stand all of 30 seconds before he still got paid. And she went like this when she left.
She did that? Oh, a little attitude. A little cheeky.
Oh, yeah. She has a nasty. She did not like the defense at all. But like I said, she strikes me as one of those people that no matter how much evidence you put in front of her, that this person is probably not a victim of trauma, she's going to find a way to say that they're a victim of trauma.
Shout out Victoria Bekempis.
Yes. She said that?
No, I said shout out to Victoria Bekempis because I feel like she would be aligned. Victoria Bekempis, everyone, she's the one who every time Jonathan's walking in, hey, Jonathan, what's your favorite Bible?
Yeah, she's a moron. She's a complete moron. And
you see her.
I tried to tell Flavio that when he was singing her praises, but he figured it out yesterday. So I was like, I tried to tell you.
Well, Jonathan, did you not take the stand because you were afraid of the witnesses? What was it? She had some thing to say.
Yeah, she's just stupid. And my thing is, when do you know a defendant to ever take the stand? 9 times out of 10, they don't.
Because it can lead to a question. It could lead to a question about his history, and then there'll be a rebuttal witness, and there's be another ex of Jonathan.
Yeah, we'd be going through this until the new year if he took the stand. All right, so then we talked to Ronnie Mejia. Physically speaking, he looked, when I first saw him go to the back, I thought he was black, but and I didn't know who he was. So he's an Afro-Latino, so he presents as a black man. Mejia is a Hispanic last name, so I'm only assuming he might be Dominican. I don't know. Mm-hmm. He became a detective in 2017. He was formerly a Bronx Foot Patrol officer. This is the detective that took Jonathan's complaint in June. He didn't have a lot to say. It was literally just explaining when and how he took Jonathan's complaint. Most of his testimony was objected to, so he didn't get to say a whole lot, and sustained. But he was a good witness for what he was able to relate to the jury. He referred to his notes a lot to make sure that he had dates and times correct.
Oh, you can refer to your notes. That's good.
Yeah, he had a folder full of stuff.
Nice.
They basically established the when and the why, the when, the why, and the how. So apparently, the first domestic incident report that was filed by Jonathan, he was not in town, so he was on FaceTime. Priya came to the precinct, filled it out for him as he dictated it. Then Jonathan returned the signed copy a few days later. But he ended up coming back and redoing it again and signing it himself.
So I can't say, oh, this isn't not valid. He did it twice.
Right. So when it came to prosecution's cross, the only comeback that they had was asking him if it was customary to allow a complainant to let their attorney complete the domestic incident report with them on FaceTime. And the answer was no. That was the only question they had for him. But the irony in that is you allow virtual hearings, but it's a problem to have a virtual domestic incident report done.
It's customary. The question was, what's customary? He didn't say it's not allowed. The question wasn't, is this invalidating it? It was, is this customary?
But is it customary to have virtual hearings? Now it is because of COVID. So let's say Jonathan had COVID and he had to get the DRI. He did at least 2 virtual hearings for this case because of the same reason. He wasn't in New York. So what's the difference? Hearings are more important than reports. So that was just stupid. That was them just being petty.
So they asked one question only, or that was the only one of note?
They asked those 2 if it was customary to do the DIR over the with the lawyer, let the lawyer do it. And then the second question was, is it customary to do it over FaceTime?
Okay.
And both answers was no, but it didn't matter because, like I said, I'm sure the jury knows that. Well, they should know that New York allows virtual hearings. So it's the same concept. Only one is more important than the other, and that would be the hearings. The next witness is the expert witness. That's witness number 2 for the defense. She, like I said, it was a lot of that same, clinical stuff that none of us really get. She's very well educated. Another Ivy League graduate. She's board certified. Basically, her entire testimony in a nutshell, Jabari's finger was not hurt in any of the Lucy's group photos, and that the injury could not possibly occur from twisting or squeezing of the hand, because she said that those twisting and squeezing injuries would not only damage the whole hand, it would be a spiral fracture, and there was no spiral fracture. This was a oblique linear fracture, and it was just like right here. Versus if somebody's squeezing your hand or twisting your hand, it would be a spiral fracture and your entire hand would be bruised and swollen and everything, which is obvious. Same thing with the ear injury. She said if it happened the way Grace said it did, the whole ear area, head, and everything would be bruised and damaged, not just that little crease behind the ear that the picture shows. So
the biology angle, huh?
Right, and the only comeback, you're right, and that literally looks to me like a pulling injury, maybe, or that she maybe cut. I don't know if she cut it when she hit her head on the DJ booth. I have no idea, but it's clearly not from somebody punching her in the head or smacking her in the head, because again, we all know we've all been injured. Everything around that would have been swollen and bruised as well, not just that little crease back there. To me, it looks like, how sometimes you get those little cuts like right here when you get sick or you don't lubricate your lips enough, those little cuts that kind of cut like right here or in between your fingers when it's really cold out. That's the kind of cut that looks like to me. And that might be why it didn't bleed as much, because she also testified that because it's so vascular back there, it would have been bleeding profusely, and it wasn't. The next witness was Jonathan Major's agent. And to me, he put the timeline together.
Yeah, he's a great witness.
Yeah, he was a good witness. He wasn't very remarkable in his disposition or anything. He just testified he's been Jonathan's agent since he was in Yale, so 2017. He was there to just put the timeline together. He testified at 10:45 a.m. our time. Jonathan called him frantic because he couldn't get in his bedroom door. He says that he was in a panic. He sounded concerned, distraught, and worried. He testified and demonstrated. They allowed him to demonstrate how Jonathan was banging. So it was a really loud, aggressive bang. He said he did it at least 70 to 80 times before Jonathan called 911. So he called him at 10:45. We already have established that Grace was texting Holly up until 11:07. So if he got to that apartment at 10:45, banging on the door, what, you didn't hear that? Even though you were texting until 11:07? And then he called 911 at 11:12. The cops got there at 11:20-ish, as the cop said. So that was literally just setting up the fact that she was not unconscious when he got there. And Holly testified that there was not one point that they were not in constant contact. That there was only maybe 20 minutes here or there that she didn't hear from her, but we already know that 20 minutes was not in that window between 10:45 and 11:07 because you texted her at 11:07 saying that you were awake and that you were going to start packing. So what happened? You just passed out in the middle of packing? Like what? So he kind of, debunked that whole, oh, I was unconscious nonsense. So he was the last defense witness. The prosecution rested. And then, here we are today, well, yesterday, where the instructions, they went to lunch. Both closing arguments took until, we kind of sort of started on time, but it took until a little after 1:00 before they both were done. So they allowed the jury to go to lunch. We did not come back until 2:45, which is crazy because we normally come back at 2:15.
So, okay, that's the judge I should be mad at right now, the judge?
Yeah,
because if they had that extra 30 minutes,
for the worst. He started out okay, but I think he's like starting to get a little weird to me.
Listen, man, if the verdict of it came out yesterday and it came out really fast, I'd have been happy. But because the verdict's taken a whole ass day, and you guys are going at 2:15 p.m. We're recording this before Danny goes there. It's like room for the jury to ask for another clarification. Oh, okay, we'll be back tomorrow again. I feel like
this is definitely probably going to spill into Monday. So I already booked my flight. I'm annoyed because I don't like. Okay, I left New York for a reason, and this is the longest I've been here since ever leaving New York 20 years ago. And I feel like I live here again, and I'm annoyed by that. Man. So
it's draining for me too, not the same way, but it's also exhausting over here.
It's emotionally exhausting. It's intellectually exhausting because I'm like, y'all are really, really setting this up to go as long as possible. And everybody involved has already said they wanted it to be over this week. The judge, the defense, the prosecution. And at this point, I just feel like the judge is just dragging it out because there's no reason why we should always have an hour and a half lunch every day. There is no reason why, even though we're starting an hour and a half late every day, you should be letting that jury go home at 4:30. They're barely working 4 hours a day. Barely. You understand what I'm saying? I know in Florida, Georgia, both places where I've lived, like I said, I haven't been here in 20 years. I don't know how they've changed the criminal justice system since I've been here. Any other state, that jury stays in that room until they make a decision. There's no, oh, we're off the clock, get them out of the room. And that's literally what happened because they did not go back there until about 3:45. And then come 4:30, they got their coats and purses on. I'm like, what happened to actually, they didn't even have enough time to even sit down and figure it out. And now, not even an hour later, they're leaving. And that's why I'm wondering today. We're not starting until 2:15. I hope they don't think they're going home at 4:30. I really hope that, because that's not a full day.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, then we're not going to get a verdict today, because when we get there at 2:15, inevitably we're not going to start before 3, because it's always something. We
Actually,
have not
Dan.
had one day where we're starting on time. Then
Mhm.
he has to reread all the explanation of the charges again. That's probably going to take an hour. So they're probably not going to get back there until about 3:45, 4 o'clock, and they're going to want to turn around and go home at 4:30.
Shout out to the system. Shout out to the system.
Right, on a Friday. So I'm
Mm.
just like, I'm hoping that the clock starts at 2:15 and that they make them stay at least 4 or 5 hours. That's what I'm hoping, because you had a whole day that you didn't have to come in here and do anything. And the only reason why they're out is because juror number 3, the man, the middle-aged man that I said looks a little Hispanic, it's giving a little more Italian now, but regardless.
Yeah.
He has it seems like a funeral, because the judge said something about my thoughts are with you. So I'm guessing somebody died. But
That's understandable. If
yeah,
that's what it is.
yeah, he said my thoughts are with you. So it's either somebody died or got sick. I don't know. But yeah, he can't get there before 2:15. So I don't know. I'm hoping that he makes them stay past 4:30, and then we can just get a verdict. But if not, probably Monday. Then Christmas. Then the New Year. I don't know. I don't know.
I actually took you seriously when you said then Christmas. Then I was like, no, they don't work Christmas.
Because at this point, I'm just like, what next? What's going to happen next? Like, what?
Give me the jury breakdown for those who don't remember when the last time you said it.
Okay, so initially I thought it was 2 white women. When I got a really good, because she's short and she sits like way in the back. I got a good look at her. She looks ethnic. I can't really tell if she's Hispanic or maybe some type of Middle Eastern, but she's very dark complected. You cannot mistake her for an Anglo white woman.
Mm-hmm.
I just saw her like on a flash. So we have one white woman. The 4th person is Hispanic. We have 2 Asian men. One Asian man is an alternate. The ethnic looking whitish woman is an alternate. So we have 1 white woman, 2 Asian men, Hispanic foreman, the ethnic looking woman, 1 black woman, 1 Hispanic looking man. That's juror number 3. And then the white guy. He looks like he's probably in his late 20s, but he has a comb over and acne. So I'm a little mixed up on how old he is. Because I don't know if he's in his early 20s. I don't know, because he looks really young. He's just losing his hair. So he looks really young, and one of the Asian guys looks really young. I'm talking like 25, no older than 28. And one of the Asian guys, he thinks everything's funny. The main juror, he thinks everything's funny. When they kept objecting to the defense's questions, he thought he kept laughing. And I'm just like, I hope he's not going to be a problem.
No, that doesn't sound like he'd be a problem, because if you think that this woman's being abused by an abuser, you kind of don't laugh. But because you think this is a whole kangaroo court, you laugh.
Yeah, it seemed like every time they said objection, he was just giggling. And I'm just like, juror number 2 is a black woman. She looks like she's late 40s, early 50s. She was the one that kept falling asleep. And the day before yesterday, while they were waiting for 2 of the jurors to arrive, they expressed concerns about juror number 2. But she straightened up after that, because she sat up straight yesterday and the day before after they said that. So they probably was like, yeah, you got to get it together or we're going to kick you off this jury.
So she's the one who was like, that's right. She mumbled that.
And during the prosecution summations, the whole time she was like this. During the defense, she was sitting up watching and paying attention. So I know she already made her decision. I'm just hoping that she's a strong enough personality to hold it down. I did hear her speak on the elevator, and she seems like she's like me, like really, so I'm hoping that's the case, and I'm hoping she won't be the one that'll buckle down if she's outnumbered. But she's been on the earth long enough that I think that she could hold her own if it turns out that everybody's trying to, or more than a few people are trying to convict him. And if that's the case, then let it be a mistrial. I'd rather it be a mistrial than a conviction.
Oh yeah.
Because I don't
Oh yeah.
think that they would retry it. That's just dumb. That's
Yeah.
just stupid. It's a waste of time. This dude did not. This literally just boils down to a shitty relationship gone wrong. And he called the police thinking he was helping her with her fake, you know, unconsciousness. And it
Oh
came
my
back to
god.
bite him on the ass.
Oh
And
god.
you did see where I say he started crying when Priya said that.
Yeah. How could you guys tell if he's crying? Because you're not the
Oh,
only
well,
one to
I'm
tell me
sitting
this.
really close. I'm
But
sitting really
but
close.
he's facing forward.
He's facing forward, but when the prosecution and everybody, he's turned toward the jury and toward the
Okay.
so you can see his profile.
All right.
And when she said that, you know, his worst nightmare came true, you can see him wince. And then he first of all, he slouched really low down into the seat. He went from sitting up, you know, like he normally sits up, to slouching down in the seat. And then you see him wince. And then, you know, he was clearly crying. And then
Okay.
Seth handed him tissue and he cried for about 10, 15 minutes.
I mean, respectfully, that he's an actor, so like nothing he does. I'm just saying. I'm just okay.
I mean, okay, but respectfully too. I don't know if you probably don't follow him because you said you just really do a lot of the Marvel stuff. But I've seen probably 90% of his interviews, like on the Tamron Hall show. There was an interview he did. It was a long Tamron Hall. It was most of her episode. It was the Tamron Hall show. He did an interview with the cast of Devotion, where he cried when talking about the relationship between the husband and wife characters in the movie. He started crying, and his co-star gave him a napkin. He cried on the Tamron Hall show when one of his college professors surprised him on the.
I saw that clip. Yeah.
Yeah, he started crying about that.
Wait. In college, wasn't he a ruckus? Wasn't he just an absolute menace?
Allegedly. And what happened to all those ex-girlfriends that were supposed to testify?
No,
Right.
no. There's more trial. They're coming. Don't worry.
Oh, okay. He cried about that. He cried when Tamron gave him a book, a favorite book of his, during that same thing. He cried during a Sports Illustrated interview when he was talking about his stepdad, because his stepdad was in prison at one point, and he said that that's what his character Dame. He built his character Dame off of that.
Oh, with the Nipsey Hussle. Okay.
no, off of coming out of prison and trying to, you know, make up for lost time. He cried on that interview. So he's a crier. I don't think that was acting, and it was, you know, it was appropriately timed, because literally I would feel, and he had held it down for the whole trial, because I feel like there was a lot of times he wanted to cry, because I wanted to cry, and he didn't. So I think at that point when she said that, it probably just hit him like, yeah, this is why I'm here. I literally am afraid of the cops, and this is why I don't call the cops, and here I am because I called the cops. Literally. You know, it kind of like hits you like shit. Like, this is literally it. You know what I mean? And he cried. And I would hope the jury wouldn't think that. But again, they supposedly don't know who he is or shouldn't know. Yeah. So they wouldn't know that he's just a crier. He's just a really sensitive person.
The jury asked for 911 audio. Basically, what we've been able to do, which is play, rewind, play it back, watch another YouTuber talk about it. They didn't have that. They just heard it one time in court, and that's it. So they
and
asked
you couldn't
for more.
hear it. It was really grainy. So hopefully they have a better source of audio in the jury room, because it was horrible. It was really bad. And during closing summations, when the prosecution played it again, they had to stop it, start it over twice, and then he took the mic and held it up against the computer, and you still could hardly hear it.
So to the chicken shit cowards who don't want to come out on a whim and say their opinion on this, they have enough evidence, because all of it has been unsealed, or majority of it has been unsealed, right? Not all of it, but there's sufficient evidence to determine whether or not Jonathan is guilty or innocent based off your determination. You don't require 6 jurors who you've never heard of who live in Manhattan, New York, right?
Right. They have to live in the same county. Yeah.
I think we're good to go. Is there anything else you want to add to this?
No, I don't know. I feel good. I feel that more than enough doubt was sown. I just never feel confident with juries, because as long as I've been on this earth, and I've lived in 3 different states, including New York, I've never been called for jury duty. Actually, I got called once, about 5-6 years ago. Once ever. And I've always wanted to be a juror. Didn't get picked.
Oh, poor you.
when I used to do things for CNN, I actually had Joey Jackson is actually a good friend of ours, the guy that does a lot of work on CNN.
You know Joey Jackson, you know the Central Park 3 out of 5. What?
Yeah, well, Joey
Were you
Jackson.
wilding that night?
No, no, I'm a good few years younger than them, but we all still hung together because everybody's the same age in the hood. But Joey Jackson is a good friend of mine, and he told me off camera when we were doing the CNN stuff, he said I would never pick you as a juror, just so you know. He was like, because you're too smart, and not obviously we're all smart, right? But he meant smart in terms of I think too much, I analyze too much. He was like, you'd be the one to hold the jury up on making it, and he's right. And maybe they sense that. I'm sure that they check and see who you are before they call you for jury duty. And like I said, I've never been called. I got called one time 5 years ago in Florida, and it was for some feral cat neighbor argument situation, and they didn't pick me. They picked the woman that made it clear that she did not like the police, did not trust the legal system. They picked her. So I'm saying that to say that I just don't, out of 8 of them, there might be 2 that I have confidence in. And that's the guy that's holding us up today, because I see him doing this a lot. Especially when the defense is talking, and the black lady, because she clearly is completely disengaged when it comes to anything the prosecution does. Those are the only 2 out of the 6 main jurors that I have faith in. And so that scares me. And it scares me too that they couldn't remember what the charges meant and need that reread again. Because I'm like, why? Why do you need to understand that him trying to get her off of him is not harassment?
Truly worrisome.
That's not harassment by the way it's defined by the prosecution. She was harassing him, pulling him, running after him, fighting him when he was trying to keep her back in the car. She was harassing him.
What if it was the first thing that they asked the first minute of deliberation, and it just took forever to get that into, I don't know. I'm just making
Somebody
excuses.
probably said that, and that's why they're asking for it, because I bet you half of them understand what I just said, and then the other half are like, well, let's see it again just to be sure.
Yeah, I guess so.
So I don't.
So Danielle Atherton and Chillmonger are 2 people who've never met each other before 2 weeks ago. We probably will never talk again because, I mean, what are the odds that there'll be another sort of like incident like this, right? I'm not gonna, right? So like, but I want everyone to be motivated by how 2 strangers just came on business because we understood what was happening. I allowed for my platform to platform, and it was not that big, but it got really big, and it was an important message to get Jonathan Major's innocence, or at least his story, or the telling of the ongoings in the courtroom, to be publicly known on this YouTube thing. Danny knows that. We don't know each other. I promise we know nothing about each other, but we get that. And I want to motivate all, some 15-year-olds, some younger people might be watching, and they need to know that there's adults in their life who are doing that work, okay? We love each other. We never heard of each other, but we just do. And there's a community of people who are going to be watching this video, nodding their head, right now at this portion, wishing that there was 2 thumbs up buttons to make things more positive.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, all we can do is pray. Whatever your faith is prayer, right? So let's just give it up to God and just pray that these people use common sense. Please, you don't have to have advanced degrees. You don't have to. And even the prosecution said, use your own everyday life experience. Like a lot of this is not rocket science. You don't have to have a law degree. You don't have to have been domestically abused or lied on to see that, as plain as day, this is not to be convicted. This is not a charge to be convicted.
That's that. Thanks for watching the video. Leave them. Oh, last question, Danielle. Who the hell is Grace Jabari?
Stephanie.